The stars looked different from Nova Station. Captain Day Kim stood at the observation deck, watching the neutron star spin in the distance. Its light painted everything in shades of blue and white. He had been in space for 15 years, but this view still took his breath away. Behind him, 3,000 humans moved through the massive diplomatic hub, excited and nervous about what was coming. Ambassador Hannah Park walked up beside him. She wore the formal diplomatic robes of Earth, blue and gold threads woven together in patterns that represented unity. Her face was calm, but Day knew her well enough to see the worry in her eyes. "Do you trust them?" Day asked quietly. Hannah didn't answer right away. She watched the aliens moving through the station below. Tall ones, short ones, ones with scales, and ones with feathers. The Galactic Harmony Council represented 847 species. Humanity was about to become the 848th. "I want to," she finally said. "We've worked so hard for this." 15 years ago, humanity had made first contact. The Council had welcomed them with open arms, or tentacles, or whatever appendages they had. Earth had shared its culture, its technology, its hope. They had followed every rule, completed every requirement, and waited patiently for full membership. Today was supposed to be the day everything changed. Day looked down at his uniform. The patch on his shoulder showed Earth, small and blue, against the black of space. He thought about his daughter back home, about the message he'd sent her before leaving. "When you watch this, I'll be a citizen of the galaxy," he'd told her with a smile. Now he wasn't so sure. Chief Science Officer Yuna Lee joined them at the window. She carried a data pad, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. "The ceremony starts in 2 hours," she said. "All delegations are arriving. This is really happening." The massive ceremony hall filled with beings from across the galaxy. Humans clustered together, small compared to many of the other species. Children held their parents' hands, scientists compared notes with alien colleagues, and diplomats practiced their speeches in a dozen different languages. Chairman Vegstar took the stage. He was a Vrexian, tall and covered in smooth purple skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. His voice boomed through the hall without need for amplification. "Today, we welcome humanity into the Galactic Harmony Council as full members. Today, we celebrate unity." The crowd cheered. Humans hugged each other. Day saw tears on Ambassador Hannah's face as she walked toward the stage. This was the moment they had dreamed about. Vegstar raised his hand, and the room fell silent. "But first, we must address a matter of grave importance." Hannah stopped walking. Something in his tone had changed. "The Council has reviewed humanity's history," Vegstar continued. "We have studied your wars, your violence, your aggression. We have watched how you treat your own kind, how you consume your planet's resources without thought for tomorrow." Murmurs spread through the hall. The humans looked at each other, confused. This wasn't part of the ceremony they'd been told about. "The Council has determined that humanity represents a danger to galactic peace," Vegstar said. His voice was cold now, empty of the warmth from before. "Therefore, Earth and all human colonies will be placed under protective custody. Your vessels will be confiscated. Your technology will be controlled. Your people will serve the Council in whatever capacity we deem necessary." The hall erupted in chaos. Humans shouted, aliens backed away, and security forces appeared from every entrance. They wore armor that Day had never seen before, carrying weapons that hummed with deadly energy. "This is insane," Hannah screamed. "We've done everything you asked. We followed every law." "You followed our laws because you were weak," Vegstar replied. "Now you will serve because we are strong." Daz's communicator burst to life. His crew aboard the Horizon's Promise was shouting, their voices overlapping. "Captain, we're locked in." The station's weapons are targeting us. Every human ship is trapped. He ran toward the exit, but armored guards blocked his path. Behind him, he heard screams as families were separated, as soldiers grabbed anyone who resisted. "Let me through," he shouted. "I'm a ship captain. I have—" The guard hit him with the butt of its weapon. Pain exploded through Day's skull, and he fell to his knees. Through blurred vision, he saw them taking Hana away. She fought like a wild animal, but they were too strong. Outside the station, the human fleet tried to escape. The Horizon's Promise fired its engines, desperate to break free from the invisible field holding it in place. Other ships did the same, their captains refusing to surrender without a fight. Nova Station's weapons powered up. Energy collectors that had been disguised as communication arrays rotated toward the trapped vessels. Missile ports opened in the station's hull like thousands of hungry mouths. "This is Captain Day Kim of Earth." Day's first officer broadcast on all channels. "We are a diplomatic mission. We are unarmed. Please, we have families aboard." The Council didn't answer. They just fired. The first missiles hit the Horizon's Promise along her port side. The ship's shields, designed for asteroid impacts and radiation, did nothing against military-grade weapons. Metal tore like paper. Atmosphere vented into space. People who had been laughing and celebrating moments ago were suddenly screaming as they were pulled into the void. 12 more human ships died in the first volley. They exploded in silence, beautiful and terrible, flowers of fire blooming against the stars. Day pulled himself to his feet inside the ceremony hall. Blood ran down his face from where he'd been hit. He stumbled to a window and saw his ship dying. Saw the crew he'd served with for a decade being murdered. His hands found a communication panel on the wall. He didn't know if anyone could hear him, didn't know if the signal would reach Earth, but he had to try. "This is Captain Day Kim," he said, his voice breaking. "The Council has betrayed us. This was a trap. They're killing everyone. Please, please remember us. Don't trust them. Tell Earth." The guards grabbed him from behind. He fought, but there were too many. As they dragged him away, he kept his eyes on the window, kept watching the stars until the darkness took him. Outside, the last human ship exploded. 3,000 had entered Nova Station. 47 survived as prisoners. The rest became dust and memory, scattered among the cold and uncaring stars. On Earth, the final transmission arrived. Captain Day's broken message played in the war rooms, in the government chambers, in the homes of families who would never see their loved ones again, and humanity began to understand what it meant to have enemies among the stars. Admiral Kang stood in the war room deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. The room had been built during the first years, after contact with the Council, back when humanity still believed in peace, but prepared for war anyway. Now that preparation seemed like the only smart thing they'd ever done. 6 months had passed since Nova Station. 6 months since 3,000 people had been slaughtered like animals. 6 months since Earth learned that the galaxy was not friendly, not safe, and not interested in human dreams of unity. The walls around Kong showed tactical displays from across human space. Every colony, every outpost, every ship was marked in blue. Council territories glowed red, a sea of crimson that surrounded Earth's small bubble of blue like blood in water. "Sir, the Third Council Fleet has entered the Kuiper Belt," reported Colonel Jin Beek. He was a thin man with scars on his hands from years of combat training. Same as the others. 50 ships moving in standard formation. They think we're an easy target. Kong smiled, but there was no humor in it. Let them think that. Are the mines ready? Yes, sir. Waiting for your command. Kong nodded. He touched a button on the display, and 50 red dots in the Kuiper Belt suddenly went dark. Just like that, another Council enforcement fleet ceased to exist. No explosions, no warning, no survivors. They were there one moment and gone the next, erased by weapons the Council didn't know existed. That's 3 fleets, Kong said quietly. 300 ships that will never report back. How long until the Council realizes they're not dealing with primitive animals anymore? Dr. Mina Choi entered the war room carrying a case. She was younger than most of the military officers, barely 30, but her mind worked in ways that scared even Kong sometimes. She set the case on the table and opened it, revealing a small sphere that seemed to eat the light around it. "This is the latest version," she said. "Quantum Destabilizer Mark 7. It doesn't destroy matter. It erases the quantum bonds that hold matter together. A ship hit by this doesn't explode. It just stops being a ship, stops being anything really." Colonel Jin leaned closer to look at the sphere, then thought better of it and pulled back. "How many can we make?" "We already have 10,000, Mina replied, "deployed throughout the solar system. If the Council sends their Grand Armada, they'll be flying into a minefield that can unmake them at the atomic level." Kong had ordered Protocol Midnight activated the day after Nova Station. Every human, everywhere, had been given the same message: prepare for total war. There would be no surrender, no negotiation, no mercy. The Council had shown their true face, and humanity would show them something the galaxy had never seen before. Intelligence Officer Suji Han appeared on one of the screens. She was operating from deep inside Council space, one of hundreds of agents who had infiltrated alien worlds during the years of supposed peace. Her sister had died at Nova Station, and the rage in her eyes never faded. "Sir, I have the numbers you requested," she said. "The Council is assembling the largest fleet in their history. 10,000 warships from 200 species. They're calling it the Grand Armada. Launch date is estimated at 3 months from now." "Let me guess," Kong said. "They're coming here." "Yes, sir. They plan to make an example of Earth. Show the galaxy what happens to species that resist." Kong laughed, actually laughed. The officers around him looked uncomfortable, but he couldn't help it. The Council had no idea what they were walking into. "Tell me about our preparations," he ordered. Colonel Jin brought up new displays. Earth's moon appeared on the screen, but it didn't look like the moon anymore. It looked like a weapon. Massive. Railguns covered its surface, power collectors ringed its equator, and missile silos dotted it like a disease. "We've converted Luna into the largest weapons platform in human history," Jin explained. "It can fire projectiles at .09 light speed. At that velocity, a bullet the size of your fist hits with the force of a nuclear bomb." "And Mars?" Kong asked. "Surrounded by our stealth fleet. 2,000 ships equipped with cloaking technology we reverse-engineered from Council designs and improved. They can't see us, can't track us, can't fight what they can't find." Mina pulled up more files. "We've also weaponized concepts the Council banned as too dangerous. Gravity mines that can crush a ship into a singularity. Reality anchors that prevent faster-than-light travel in designated zones. Biological weapons that target specific alien species' life support systems." "That last one bothers me," admitted Admiral Kong. "That's a war crime by any measure." "They murdered 3,000 unarmed diplomats," Mina replied, her voice hard. "They were going to enslave our entire species." "War crimes don't apply when the enemy doesn't recognize you as people." She was right, Kong knew. The Council had made their choice. Now humanity would make theirs. "What about the ghost operatives?" he asked, turning to Jin. The colonel's smile was dangerous. 50,000 trained and deployed. They've been living among the Council species for months now, completely invisible. The Council is searching for them, terrified, but they can't find what they can't see. Good. It's time to use them. Suji, coordinate with Jin. I want strikes on every major council military installation. Shipyards, fuel depots, communication networks, training facilities. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and make them afraid. Yes, sir. Suji's image flickered as she logged off to begin her work. Kong stood and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the ocean floor, lit by the base's external lights. Strange. Fish moved through the darkness, hunting and being hunted, living by rules older than civilization. Sir, Jin said carefully, the casualties are going to be enormous. On both sides. Are we really going to do this? Kong thought about Captain Day, about Ambassador Hana, still alive somewhere in a council prison, about 3,000 people who had believed in peace and died for that belief. The council wanted to see our dangerous nature, he said quietly. They're going to get their wish. But they made one mistake. They thought we were dangerous because we're violent. That's not why we're dangerous. Then why are we dangerous, sir? Asked Mina. Kong turned to face them. Because we're smart. Because we're adaptable. Because when you corner us, we don't curl up and die. We fight with everything we have. And right now, we have a lot. He pulled up a communication channel that would broadcast. To every human in every colony, on every ship, in every bunker across human space. This is Admiral Kong, he began. 6 months ago, the Council murdered our people and declared war on our species. They expected us to surrender. They expected us to accept slavery. They were wrong. His voice grew stronger, filled with a fire that made everyone in the room stand straighter. For 6 months, we've prepared. We've built weapons. We've trained soldiers. We've turned our entire civilization into a war machine. And now the Council is sending 10,000 ships to destroy us. They think this will be easy. They think we're primitives who got lucky with technology. He paused, letting the silence build. Let them come. Let them see what happens when you attack humanity's home. Let them learn why our ancestors climbed to the top of Earth's food chain. We're not the strongest species in the galaxy. We're not the fastest or the toughest. But we are the meanest, the smartest, and the most stubborn. And we're going to teach the Council a lesson they'll never forget. The communication ended. Across human space, billions of people heard the message. In bunkers and ships, in colonies and stations, humanity prepared for war. 3 months later, Council scouts detected something strange in Earth's solar system. The moon had changed. Mars was surrounded by ships that appeared from nowhere. And deep in the Kuiper Belt, something was waiting that would make the Council's Grand Armada wish they had never heard of humanity. Lieutenant Era Song moved through the darkness like water, silent and invisible. The Vrexian military shipyard stretched for miles around her. Massive construction docks building the warships that would join the Grand Armada. Thousands of workers moved between the ships, welding and wiring, preparing for humanity's destruction. None of them saw her. The stealth suit she wore bent light around her body, making her invisible to both eyes and sensors. Her breathing was controlled, her heartbeat slow and steady. She had been trained for this, had practiced 1,000 times, but this was the first time it mattered. This was the first time she was going into enemy territory, not to gather information, but to kill. She reached the primary fuel depot, a massive tank containing enough antimatter to power the entire shipyard for a year. Her fingers moved across. Her wrist computer, activating the device she'd planted 3 days ago when she first infiltrated this place. The timer started, 60 seconds. Era ran. Not because she was afraid of dying, but because she had 6 more targets tonight. And dying here would be a waste. 50-8 seconds. She was past the first security checkpoint, the guards still laughing at some joke in their alien language. 55 seconds. She dropped down a maintenance shaft, falling 3 stories, before catching herself on a ladder. 50 seconds. She was in the ventilation system now, crawling fast, her muscles burning. 45 seconds. She reached the exit point, a small hatch that led to the station's exterior. 40 seconds. The hatch opened, and she was outside, magnetic boots locking onto the hull. 35 seconds. She ran across the curved surface of the station, heading for the emergency shuttle she'd hidden 2 clicks away. 30 seconds. Almost there. 25 seconds. She could see the shuttle now, a small civilian craft that would never be suspected. 20 seconds. She dove inside and fired the engines. 15 seconds. The shuttle lifted off, moving away from the station. At a casual speed, just another worker heading home after a long shift. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. The fuel depot exploded, but it wasn't a normal explosion. The antimatter didn't just destroy the depot. It started a chain reaction with the partially fueled warships nearby. 16 vessels that had been days away from completion suddenly ceased to exist, taking half the shipyard and 3,000 workers with them. Era watched the explosion through her shuttle's rear camera. She felt nothing. No joy, no satisfaction, no regret. She had a job to do, and she was doing it. Ghost 7 to command, she said into her communicator. Target eliminated. Moving to next objective. Confirmed, Ghost 7, Colonel Jin Beek's voice replied. Nice work. Ghost 12 is reporting success at the Maltarian fuel refineries. Ghost 23 took out the communication hub on Qualis Prime. We're 40% through the target list. Understood? Ghost 7 out. Across Council space, similar operations were happening. Tae Huang, an expert in sabotage, had infiltrated the Council's primary military academy. He looked like a janitor, moved like a janitor, and for 3 months had been cleaning floors and emptying trash while mapping every security system in the building. Now he stood in the Academy's Central Life Support Control Room. The guards lay unconscious at his feet, alive but drugged. He wasn't a murderer by nature, but tonight wasn't about nature. It was about survival. His fingers flew across the control panel, overriding safety systems and redirecting the Academy's oxygen supply. In 30 minutes, the entire building would be flooded with carbon monoxide. 15,000 trainee officers, the future commanders of the Council's military, would die in their sleep. Tay activated the timer and left the same way he came in. Just another janitor finishing his shift. On the Council world of Drexus 4, Rin Ko sat in a cafe, drinking something that tasted like burnt flowers, but was supposed to be a local delicacy. She wore the skin of a Drexian merchant, a holographic disguise so perfect that even other Drexians couldn't tell the difference. Across from her sat Admiral Vox Rin, a high-ranking member of the Grand Armada's command staff. He was bragging about the fleet, about how they would crush humanity, about how he'd personally requested the honor of bombarding Earth cities. Rin smiled and pretended to be impressed. She laughed at his jokes and ordered another round of drinks. The poison she'd put in his cup was slow-acting, designed to mimic a heart attack. He would be dead in 6 hours, and the autopsy would show nothing suspicious. He was the 12th admiral she'd killed this month. You know, Voxrin said, his words starting to slur from the alcohol, the humans don't stand a chance. 10,000 ships. They have, what, maybe a few hundred. This will be a slaughter. I'm sure you're right, Rin said sweetly. Tell me more about your battle plans. And he did, because he was drunk and arrogant and couldn't imagine that the attractive merchant sitting across from him was actually a human assassin who had been born on Mars, trained in Earth's special forces, and had spent the last year learning everything about Council military strategy. Everything he told her was transmitted back to Admiral Kong within the hour. The ghost operatives had been Colonel Jin's idea. 50,000 humans, carefully selected and trained, had infiltrated council space over the past year. They looked like aliens, spoke like aliens, and moved through council society like they belonged there. Some were assassins like Era and Rin. Others were saboteurs like Tay. Many were simply observers, gathering intelligence and waiting for orders. Now those orders had come. Strike, disrupt, destroy, make the asteroid, make the council afraid, and it was working. Within 3 months, 40% of the Grand Armada's ships had been destroyed or damaged before they even launched. Communication networks across council space went dark, severing coordination between different species' fleets. Fuel supplies vanished in mysterious explosions. Officers died in their sleep, in their offices, in their homes. The council began to panic. They instituted security checks, curfews, and loyalty tests. They searched for human infiltrators, but found nothing because the humans were too good, too careful, too patient. Species within the council started to suspect each other. The Vrexians accused the Quellis of sabotage. The Moltorians blamed the Drexians. Ancient alliances fractured under the weight of paranoia and fear. Intelligence. Officer Suji Han watched it all from her hidden base deep in council territory. She coordinated the ghost operations, directing assassinations and sabotage with the cold precision of a chess master. Her sister had died at Nova Station, burned alive when the Horizon's promise exploded. Every council ship destroyed, every officer killed. Every operation successful was a small payment on a debt that could never truly be repaid. "Ma'am," one of her analysts said, "we're getting reports that the council is moving up their invasion timeline. They're too scared to wait any longer. The Grand Armada launches in 1 week." Suji looked at the tactical display. 6,000 ships remained from the original 10,000. Still a massive force, still potentially overwhelming, but not the unstoppable armada the council had planned. "Contact Colonel Jin," she ordered. "Tell him to pull the ghost operatives back. Their job is done. It's time for the fleet to finish this." The message went out across council space through channels so encrypted that even the council's best codebreakers couldn't touch them. The ghost operatives began their extraction, slipping away from the worlds they'd terrorized and heading back toward human space. Lieutenant Era completed her last mission, destroying a council ammunition depot that exploded with enough force to crack the moon it was built on. As her ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, she allowed herself a small smile. Behind her, the council was bleeding and afraid. Ahead of her, Earth was waiting. The Grand Armada launched 3 days later. 6,000 warships from 200 species, all united in their desire to destroy humanity. Chairman Vexstar gave a speech about justice and order and the necessity of removing dangerous species from the galaxy. But his hands shook as he spoke. His voice wavered. And the admirals who listened to him knew the truth. They weren't going to Earth to conquer primitives. They were going to fight an enemy that had already proven it could strike anywhere, anytime, without warning. They were going to fight ghosts who had killed thousands without ever being seen. They were going to fight humanity. And for the first time in the Council's 1,000-year history, they were afraid of what they might find when they got there. Admiral Kang stood on the bridge of the flagship Retribution, watching the empty space around Neptune's orbit. His fleet waited in the darkness, cloaked and silent. 2,000 ships holding their breath like predators watching prey approach. Captain Hyon Park, commander of the Retribution, checked his displays for the 100th time. "They should be here any minute, sir." "I know," Kang replied. He looked calm, but his hands gripped the armrests of his command chair hard enough to hurt. Everything depended on the next few hours. If they failed, Earth would burn. Humanity would be enslaved or exterminated. 6 months of preparation, 6 months of sacrifice, all came down to this moment. Sir, the sensor officer called out. Mass FTL signature. Bearing 270. Distance 15 million kilometers. It's them. The Grand Armada appeared in reality like a swarm of locusts. 6,000 ships, some as small as frigates, and others massive dreadnoughts, 3 kilometers long. They filled the space around Neptune with their presence, their engines burning like stars, their weapons already charging. Admiral Vexstar sat aboard his command ship, the Pride of Unity, and smiled. The humans hadn't even shown up to fight. Their system was empty, defenseless, waiting to be conquered. All ships advance, he ordered. Proceed toward Earth at maximum speed. Let's finish this quickly. The Grand Armada moved forward, crossing into the orbit of Uranus. Still nothing. No human ships, no defenses, no resistance. Just cold, empty space and distant stars. This is too easy, muttered Vox Ren's replacement, a young admiral who had survived Rinka's assassination campaign by sheer luck. Where are they? Hiding on their planet, Vexstar replied. Cowering behind their mothers. They know they can't fight us in open space. That's when reality shuddered. Dr. Mina Choi's quantum mines didn't explode in normal space. They detonated in the quantum foam beneath reality, in the invisible foundation that held atoms together and made matter possible. When they went off, they didn't destroy ships. They erased them from existence. 800 council vessels simply ceased to be. One moment they were there, engines burning and crews laughing. The next moment, there was nothing. No debris, no bodies, no evidence they had ever existed except for the shocked screams of the ships around them. What was that? Vexstar screamed. What just happened? Nobody could answer, because nobody knew. The Council's best scientists had theorized about quantum weapons, but they dismissed them as impossible. As violations of physical law, humanity had made the impossible real. Before the Council could recover, Admiral Kong gave the order. Decloak. All ships, weapons free. 2,000 human vessels appeared from nowhere. They had been surrounding the Council fleet the entire time, invisible and patient. Now they opened fire with everything they had. The space around Neptune turned into hell. Captain Hyan aimed the retribution at the nearest Council dreadnought, a massive Quellis battleship called the Eternal Dominion. Target their engines, he ordered. Fire all forward batteries. Railguns that could accelerate projectiles to near light speed roared to life. Tungsten rods, each one no bigger than a man's arm, hit the Dominion's engines at .09 light speed. At that velocity, mass became energy. Each impact released the force of a nuclear weapon. The Dominion's rear section exploded, torn apart by physics and fury. The ship spun out of control, crashing into 3 of its companion vessels. Reload, Hyan shouted. Target the next one. Major Wu Nam led a squadron of 300 fighters through the chaos. Her ship was small, fast, and armed with weapons the Council had never seen before. She locked onto a Vrexian cruiser and fired her Hellfire missiles. The missiles didn't just explode. They burned in the vacuum of space, impossible flames that fed on the ship's own hull, spreading like disease. The cruiser's crew tried to put out the fires, but there was nothing to put out. The flames existed outside normal physics, burning until there was nothing left to consume. That's 5. Wu called to her squadron. Find me 5 more. The Council fought back with desperate fury. Their ships outnumbered the humans 3-1, and their weapons were powerful. Plasma cannons that could melt through armor, missile swarms that blocked out the stars, gravity beams that crushed ships like tin cans. Human vessels died. The destroyer Vigilance took a direct hit from a plasma cannon and broke in half. The cruiser Defiance was caught in a gravity well and compressed into a ball of metal the size of a car. The carrier rests. Alut went down fighting, its fighter bays burning as it launched one last squadron before exploding. But for every human ship that died, 3 Council ships went with it. Admiral Kang watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. Red icons for Council ships, blue for human ones. The colors mixed and merged, flickering out one by one. This was war at its most brutal. 2 civilizations trying to destroy each other with every weapon science could create. "Sir, the Council's center formation is breaking," reported the tactical officer. "They're trying to regroup." "Don't let them," Kang ordered. "All ships, focus fire on their command vessels. Kill their admirals, break their command structure." The human fleet surged forward. Ships that had been built in secret over 6 months, armed with weapons the Council didn't understand. Piloted by people who had nothing left to lose, Captain Hyan aimed the retribution at the Pride of Unity, Vexstar's flagship. "That's the one who ordered Nova Station," he said quietly. "That's the one who killed Captain Day." "Then let's kill him back," Kang replied. The Retribution was a unique ship, the only one of its kind. Its hull was reinforced with materials from Earth's deepest mines. Its engines could push it to speeds that would tear other ships apart. And its bow, instead of weapons, had a ram. A massive spear of metal and fury, designed for one purpose, to punch through anything in its way. "All hands, brace for impact." Hyan called out, "Maximum speed, ramming course." The Retribution accelerated. Faster and faster, engines screaming, hull groaning under the stress. Council ships tried to intercept it, firing everything they had, but the Retribution's shields held. Barely. Vexstar saw it coming. Saw the human ship bearing down on him like a missile, like death itself. He tried to order evasive maneuvers, but it was too late. The Retribution hit the Pride of Unity at 17,000 kilometers per hour. The impact was cataclysmic. The ram punched through the Pride's forward shields, through 300 meters of armor, through decks and bulkheads and crew quarters. The ship split in half like rotten wood, spilling atmosphere and bodies into space. Vexstar had one moment to understand what had happened. One moment to realize that the primitives had beaten him. Then the explosive decompression tore him apart. The Retribution emerged from the other side of the wreckage, damaged but alive. Its ram was gone. Its forward sections were crumpled, but it was still fighting. "That's for Nova Station," Hyan whispered. The battle raged for 72 hours. 3 days of constant fighting, no rest, no mercy. Ships burned and died. Crews fought until their weapons overheated, and then kept fighting with whatever they could find. The Council's numerical advantage slowly evaporated. Human ships used tactics the Council had never encountered. They rammed. They self-destructed to take enemies with them. They fired at point-blank range, trading their own lives for Council kills. It was madness. It was beautiful. It was humanity refusing to die quietly. On the 3rd day, the Council's fleet finally broke. 4,500 ships were gone, destroyed or disabled. The survivors, barely 300 vessels, turned and ran. Admiral Kang wanted to let them go, wanted to declare victory and start repairing his battered fleet. But he thought about Captain Day, about Ambassador Hana, still imprisoned somewhere, about 3,000 people who had died believing in peace. "Pursue them," he ordered. "Don't let a single ship escape our system." The human fleet, exhausted and damaged, chased the Council's survivors all the way to the edge of the solar system. By the time it was over, only a handful of Council ships had escaped into FTL. Everyone else was dead or captured. Admiral Kang stood on the bridge of the Retribution, looking at the tactical display. Blue icons, so many fewer than before. Each one represented a ship, A crew. Hundreds of lives sacrificed to protect Earth. "Get me casualty reports," he said quietly. The numbers came in slowly. 1,600 human ships destroyed. 800,000 crew members dead. The victory had cost them dearly, but Earth still stood. Humanity still lived. And the Council had learned what it meant to attack humanity's home. Kong opened a channel to all surviving ships. "This is Admiral Kong. The battle is over. We won." Cheers echoed across the fleet, but they were tired cheers, the sound of people who had survived something terrible and weren't sure how to feel about it. "Return to Earth," Kong continued. "Get some rest, because this isn't finished. The Council still exists, still has thousands of worlds and billions of soldiers. And Ambassador Hana and the other prisoners are still out there, waiting for us to bring them home." He paused, looking out at the stars. "We showed them we can defend our home. Now we're going to show them what happens when humanity goes on the offensive." The council chambers had never been so quiet. The massive room, designed to hold representatives from 847 species, felt empty even though it was full. Fear had a smell, Ambassador Hana Park thought. It smelled like sweat and desperation and the slow realization that everything you believed was a lie. She stood in the center of the chamber, still wearing the prison uniform they'd given her 6 months ago. Behind her stood the 46 other survivors of Nova Station, including Chief Science Officer Yuna Lee. They looked thin and tired, but their eyes burned with something the Council had never seen before in their conquered species: righteous anger. Above them, projected in the air like a ghost, was Admiral Kong. His image was being broadcast from Earth, from the planet the Council had tried to destroy, the planet that had destroyed them instead. 6 weeks ago, Kong's voice echoed through the chamber. "You sent 10,000 ships to annihilate humanity. Only a handful survived. Would anyone like to explain where the rest of them went?" Nobody answered. The council members sat in their seats, looking at each other, waiting for someone else to speak first. Chairman Vexstar was dead, killed when the Retribution split his ship in half. His replacement, a Maltarian named Creolox, finally found his voice. The Council demands that humanity surrender immediately. Your attack on our forces was unprovoked, and unprovoked? Hana's laugh cut through the chamber like a knife. You murdered 3,000 unarmed diplomats. You tried to enslave our entire species. And you call our defense unprovoked? You are a dangerous species. Creolox shouted, his composure cracking. Your history proves it. Your violence, your wars, Our violence saved us, Hana interrupted. Our wars taught us how to fight. And your arrogance made you think we'd just roll over and accept slavery. Yuna stepped forward, holding a data device. While we were prisoners, we had a lot of time to think. Time to analyze the Council's history. And we found something interesting. She activated the device, and images filled the chamber. Documents, videos, records that the Council had thought were buried and forgotten. The Council wasn't always 847 species, Yuna continued. It used to be much larger, but over the centuries, species disappeared from the records. 73 of them, to be exact. The chamber erupted in shouts and denials, but Yuna spoke over them. We found evidence of what happened to them. The Council would approach a promising species, offer them membership, and then declare them dangerous or unfit. Those species were enslaved, their resources stripped, their people broken. The Nova Station massacre wasn't new. It was standard procedure. Lies! Creolox screamed. These records are fabricated. Human propaganda. Admiral Kong's image smiled coldly. Then you won't mind when we broadcast them to every species in Council space. In fact, we already have. The Council members froze. On their personal communicators, messages were flooding in from their home worlds. Reports of riots, rebellions, demands for answers. The truth was spreading like wildfire, and nothing could stop it. "You see," Hana said quietly, "we're not just here for revenge. We're here to burn your empire to the ground." She pulled out another device, this one showing a real-time tactical display of council space. Red dots appeared across the map, hundreds of them, each one representing a human warship. "While you were busy sending your grand armada to die at Earth, we sent our fleets to your worlds. Not to conquer them, not to enslave them. We sent them to free the species you've been oppressing for centuries." The tactical display updated. Across council space, rebellions were igniting. Species that had been conquered long ago were rising up, armed with weapons and information provided by human forces. 200 subjugated civilizations were declaring their independence simultaneously. "This is illegal," Kreolok shouted. "This violates every council law." "Your laws," Admiral Kong replied, "were designed to keep you in power and everyone else under your boot. We don't recognize your authority anymore." "Nobody does." The chamber descended into chaos. Council members argued with each other, some trying to organize a military response, others already planning their escape. The empire they built over 1,000 years was collapsing in hours. Hana let them panic for a moment, then raised her hand. Silence fell gradually, fear overriding anger. "Here's what's going to happen," she said. "The council will vote to disband itself. All conquered species will be granted immediate independence. All council military forces will stand down. And every council leader involved in the enslavement and murder of other species will stand trial for war crimes." "And if we refuse?" Kreolok asked, though his voice shook. Hana pressed a button on her device. The chamber's main display switched to show space above Kreolok's home world. Surrounding the planet were dozens of human warships, their weapons charged and ready. "If you refuse," Hana said calmly, "we reduce your worlds to ash. Every council homeworld is currently under our guns. We can do to you what you plan to do to us. The only difference is, we'll actually succeed." The silence that followed was absolute. The council members stared at the display, at the ships that could destroy everything they built, everything they loved. "You're bluffing," Kreolok said, but he didn't sound convinced. "You wouldn't commit genocide. You're not like us." "You're right," Admiral Kong agreed. "We're not like you. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We don't want to enslave anyone. But make no mistake, if you force us to choose between your survival and ours, we'll choose ours every single time." His expression softened slightly. "But here's the thing. We don't have to make that choice. You can surrender. You can accept justice. You can help us build something better than this corrupt empire you created. And if we do?" asked Cullis' representative, speaking for the first time. "What happens to us?" "You get to go home," Hana replied. "You get to live. Your people get to rebuild without the weight of your crimes crushing them. Some of you might even get to help create a real galactic community, one based on cooperation instead of domination." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of beings from 100 different species. "Or you can fight. You can refuse. And we'll show you the same mercy you showed our 3,000 diplomats at Nova Station." The council deliberated for 3 hours. Hana and the other survivors waited, patient and cold. They'd been prisoners for 6 months, tortured and questioned, forced to watch as the council planned Earth's destruction. 3 hours was nothing. Finally, Kreolok returned to the chamber center. He looked like he'd aged a decade in those 3 hours. "The council votes to accept your terms. We will disband. We will release all subjugated species. We will stand trial." "Smart choice," Admiral Kong said. Because here's something else you should know. If you'd refused, if you'd forced us to destroy your worlds, we would have done it. And we would have slept fine afterward. That's what you made us into. That's the real danger of humanity. What danger? Creolox asked weakly. You were so afraid we'd be monsters that you treated us like monsters, Hannah explained. And when you do that to humans, when you push us into a corner and threaten everything we love, we become exactly what you feared. Not because we want to, but because we have to. The trials began within a week. Council leaders who had ordered massacres, authorized slavery, and profited from the suffering of others were prosecuted under a new galactic court. Some were sentenced to prison, others to exile, a few to execution. The Council's empire dissolved. Species that had been conquered centuries ago suddenly found themselves free. Some descended into chaos, years of oppression, leaving them unprepared for independence. Others thrived immediately, finally able to pursue their own destinies. Humanity didn't try to rule this new galaxy. They'd learned that lesson well. Instead, they became guarantors of freedom, using their military might to prevent new empires from forming. Human ships patrolled trade routes, protected vulnerable species, and intervened when stronger civilizations tried to bully weaker ones. It wasn't perfect. There were still wars, still conflicts, still suffering. But it was better than what had come before. 2 years after the Battle of Terra's Gate, Ambassador Hana and Chief Science Officer Yuna stood at the memorial on Earth. It was a simple structure. A wall of black stone with 3,000 names carved into it. The names of everyone who had died at Nova Station. They wanted to break us, Yuna said quietly, touching her brother's name on the wall. He'd been a junior diplomat, only 23, fresh out of university and excited to see the stars. They wanted to turn us into slaves. Instead, we broke their chains, Hana replied. For everyone. Around them, beings from 100 species moved through the memorial. Former slaves paying respects to the humans who had freed them. Former council citizens seeking forgiveness for crimes they'd been complicit in. Children of both groups playing together, unaware of the bitter history their parents carried. Above Earth, ships from across the galaxy orbited in peaceful formation. Vrexian cruisers alongside human destroyers. Maltarian freighters trading with Quellis merchants. Former enemies learning to be neighbors. Do you think we did the right thing? Yuna asked. The war, the violence, all the death? Hana thought about Captain Day, about his final message warning Earth not to trust the Council. She thought about the 800,000 humans who had died defending their home. She thought about the Council members who had been executed for their crimes. I think we did the only thing we could do, she finally answered. The Council saw us as dangerous animals. We showed them we were something worse, dangerous people. People who could think, plan, and fight back. And now? Now we make sure nobody ever has to go through what we went through. We make sure the galaxy knows that humanity will defend the weak, oppose the strong, and never, ever kneel to tyrants again. A group of young Vrexians approached the memorial, their teacher explaining the history. The children listened with wide eyes as they learned about the massacre, the war, and the revolution that followed. Why did the humans fight so hard? One child asked. Why didn't they just surrender? The teacher, an old veteran who had fought against humanity and learned to respect them, smiled sadly. Because humans have a saying, a warning they give to anyone who threatens them. What is it? The teacher looked up at the stars, at the ships orbiting Earth in peace. They say, we're friendly until you're not. And once you're not, there's no limit to what we'll do to survive. The child thought about that. So the Council made them not friendly? Exactly. And by the time the Council realized their mistake, it was too late. Humanity had unleashed its fierce revenge, not just for themselves, but for every species the Council had ever hurt. Hannah and Una left the memorial as the sun set over Earth. The sky was beautiful, painted in shades of orange and purple, unmarred by the burning ships that had once threatened to destroy it. "They'll remember," Una said. 1,000 years from now, the galaxy will remember what happened when someone tried to enslave humanity. Hannah nodded. "Good. Let them remember. Let them tell their children and their children's children. Let the story spread across every world, every species, every civilization." What story? That humanity tried peace first, that we extended our hand in friendship, hoping for a better future. But when that hand was slapped away, when our people were murdered and our freedom threatened, we showed the galaxy what humans really are. And what are we? Hannah smiled, tired but genuine. Survivors, protectors, the species that refuses to die quietly. The ones who will burn down an empire before we let it chain us. She looked back at the memorial one last time. The Council stood shocked as humanity unleashed its fierce revenge. They expected monsters. They got justice. And the galaxy is better for it. Above them, a human warship passed overhead, its hull still bearing scars from the Battle of Terra's Gate. On its side was painted a simple message, visible to anyone who looked up. Remember Nova Station? Never again. The stars shone bright above Earth, and humanity stood ready to defend them all.